Okay, welcome back to Table Talk and Tumbleweeds. I am Pastor Lisa, and this is Pastor Josh here in Wheatland, and we are in the midst of our discussion of Lent of the Rings, connecting the Lent journey to the journey in Lord of the Rings. And if you have not already, please subscribe, make comments. If comments show up, we will go ahead and respond to them either in person at the library on Monday nights or online. So right now we're reading up to book 3, which is in the second volume. Chapter 4, The Arrival of the Ents. Yeah. Spoiler alert, we will talk freely about anything that has happened up to this point. So in the last episode, we talked about the betrayal of Boromir. Boromir tries to take the ring, and we compared that with Galadriel, and talked a little bit about how the ring is this thing that feeds into our pride, but also feeds into our desire to do good, right? The ring says, hey, use me, you can do it.
There is a thing online that discusses how the ring gives you what you most desire.
What you most desire.
Which is why in the movie version, at least, when they have the Council of Elrond, the ring is right there on that pedestal, and it says to Gimli, it whispers to everybody, whispers to Gimli, what do you most desire? And what Gimli most desires is to not look like a weenie in front of all these elves, so he takes out his axe. Because that's what he most desires.
Because that's what he most desires.
And that's what it gives you the most, or at least it promises you the most.
I just kind of wanted to read this passage again, and I said I was going to talk about really that the flaw of Boromir is impatience, not necessarily pride. Yeah. The movie and the book are quite similar. There's a couple little subtle differences. Frodo has gone off alone. Boromir comes to find him and says, "Oh, may I stay now and talk for a while since I have found you?" Right? It would comfort me where there are so many. All speech becomes a debate without end, but two people together may perhaps find wisdom. He says, maybe let me give you some advice, right? And Frodo says, I think I already know what counsel you would give, and it would seem like wisdom except for the warning of my heart. Warning? Warning against what? Said Boromir sharply. Against delay. A warning against the way that seems easier, against the refusal of the burden that is laid upon me. Frodo says to Boromir, essentially, you're trying to convince me that there's a shortcut. And the shortcut is to take up the ring and to use its power, right? Yeah. Boromir wants a shortcut. And that's the one thing that we know that we can't have is the shortcut. I mean, that's kind of the decision that was made at the council. And again, tying this into this First Sunday of Lent, which our reading is the temptation of Christ, right? Christ is tempted by Satan to use this power, right?
Easy way, just worship me and the whole nation of the earth.
And everything is like,
boom,
you don't got to do this whole death and resurrection thing. 2,000 years of trying to convince people not to be idiots. So here Satan was like, look, think of all the suffering that would have been prevented if Jesus had just let go of his pride and gone on his knees and worshipped Lucifer. Yeah. Right? But there's not a shortcut, and this is what the temptation of Christ is, right? So in some sense, you have the wandering in the desert and the wandering towards Mordor, right? Yeah. Is that there is not a shortcut. There is not a turn rocks into bread. Rocks into bread. I knew there was bread. Turn rocks into bread, right? No, just think. All you have to do is no more hunger.
Easy.
What kind of a man is Jesus? What kind of a God is Jesus? That Jesus says, no, I won't do that. And I mean, it's at some point.
Dan Erlander presents this as Satan giving the best way to be a Messiah business seminar.
Yeah.
You can do plan A, which is the easy way, the way that works, the way that's going to be fast. Yeah. Or you can do plan B, which is the way of suffering and patience. And no one will listen to that. No one will care about that.
Yeah,
you should do plan A.
And so here's Boromir, wanting to whisper in Frodo's ear, like Satan, right? Look, all you have to do is give me the ring and just think, we can end hunger. Yeah. It could happen that easily. And here's the thing, that impatience, right? And who wouldn't want to do that, right?
And that is the desire of his heart to get things done fast because people are dying.
Yes.
And so people are dying in Minas Tirith. People are dying in Gondor, and we need to save them now because the sooner we do this, the more lives we can save. Isn't that something you want, Frodo?
And it's his people that he wants to save.
Exactly. This is not a moral failing. This is a desire to move quickly because he believes that this is the correct way to do things. Exactly.
Impatience. And
it expounds itself in impatience.
That's not the way God works.
That's the reason for the ascension story, right?
Yes.
Is to say, all right, you've got tools, now use them.
Yes, we could tomorrow have a world in which there was no hunger. We honestly could. We would just have to decide to do it. And God is patiently waiting. God has been patiently waiting forever for us to choose to have a world without hunger and without violence, right? And that is kind of, we want to do the shortcut. Oh, we can't really be trusted not to be violent. We need someone to force us not to be violent, right? Or to force other people not to be violent because it's never me. So there is this sort of, Boromir wants a shortcut. And I'm sympathetic with this. I'm sympathetic, right? And this
100%.
is like, he needs to protect Gondor. These are his people, right? He is desperate to protect Gondor. He's grasping for straws. This is, it's the impatience of a drowning man. And so it's this impatience that leads to this desperation, right?
And again, this is not a moral failing. This is a good, heartfelt desire to do good, but the ring has twisted it.
Yeah. All you people sitting here talking about what to do with the ring, how many people have died in Gondor since you have started talking about this?
Yeah.
Right? There's this, there is this, I don't know if you've ever watched a movie in which people are running away and then they stop to have a heartfelt, oh yeah, and I forgive you, too, and I love you. And I'm just like screaming, run!
The
Run
zombies
now!
are coming.
Talk later. The zombies are coming. The beasties are coming. The Freddy, whatever is coming. Run now, talk later.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of, and I will say that the sin of impatience may possibly be, I may be impatient adjacent.
Yes, me too.
That it's just like, why are we talking about this? Let's just do something. It's easier to apologize than to ask permission.
Ooh.
Right? Especially when you're saved by grace. Sorry, God. So there's this sense of which, I am in this way, when it's the sin of pride, I'm sort of like, yeah, whatever, bad Boromir. Bad Boromir. But when the sin becomes impatient, I'm like, maybe that's,
that feels a little too familiar.
I totally
to really fully condemn Boromir for this.
understand. Yeah. So, and this is why the ring tempts him, right? It's not just that he thinks I'm the only one, right? The ring tempts him because,
it needs to be done now.
It
doesn't even need to be done to
people
me, but I'm the only one
dying.
who understands.
Yes.
It needs to be now.
And I think this is, so thinking about fellowship, right? This is, I'm gonna do it alone because I don't have time to wait for everyone else to decide. The world doesn't have time to wait for everyone else to decide. So that's where, he's not trusting the plan.
He does not care about consensus.
He doesn't, because consensus is so annoying.
And slow.
Right? And, but, so and I think, I guess I'll go ahead and read the rest of the quote then, right?
Yeah.
Were you not at the council? We cannot use it. What is done with it turns to evil. We've already talked about that a little bit. So he's like, well, that's only true of wizards and elves, right? Because they're timid. Wizards and elves are cautious. They're going to talk forever, blah, blah, blah. They're not going to do it, right? True-hearted men will not be corrupted, right? We of Minas Tirith have been staunch through years of long trial. We do not desire the power of wizard lords, only strength to defend ourselves, strength in a just cause, right? So this is this sort of sense of, this is back to this idea, I'm a man of action.
Yeah.
Right? I'm a man of action. I'm not going to sit around and talk about this, right? What we should be doing is moving forward and doing something, this action, right? And I think...
Well, and he ends the sentence with, what could not a warrior do in this hour?
In this hour.
Yeah. So he really says,
give me that ring
now.
for 10 minutes and I'll solve all the problems of the world. That's why the ring really tempts Boromir, right? Because it promises an immediate solution and he's desperate. But I think it also attracts him because he's a man of action, right? He is, if this, the part of the text is like, oh, wizards, these other people, they're just gonna blah, blah, blah. He says, but we men of Gondor, we are made of sterner stuff. We have been steadfast. We have the hearts of warriors, right? Yeah. And so this idea that men of action can be trusted with this kind of power, I think we've all known people like that, right? People that and I'm a little bit like that myself, that just act. They seem impulsive, but they've got good instincts. Oh, here's an opportunity. I should take this. I should move toward it. And sometimes those are the people that really, I think, sometimes accomplish great things, right?
Yeah.
Because they set the ball rolling, right? But they usually have to rely on other people to come along with it behind them and
follow through is the question.
It can be follow through, but also, they may move on to the next impulsive thing. But I think there's a sense in which, because behind them they leave a wake of dead bodies.
The acceptable collateral damage.
Collateral damage, right? Because they've got their eyes on this prize and they're not seeing what goes on behind them.
And at this moment, Frodo is collateral damage.
Frodo is collateral damage, and pretty soon everything will become collateral damage. And in some sense, that comes across as recklessness, and that sort of ties him in to like the writers of Rohan, right, who we're about to meet in the next couple of chapters, right? The writers of Rohan are these wild, impulsive, they're warriors.
They are writing the borderlands to try to get stuff done, which is where the words, Eomer, Eorwyn, stuff like that, comes from Earl, which is the borders, the edge.
Right, okay.
And so they really do want to do this. We have to protect the edgelands. We don't have time to go send somebody back to figure out what's going on. We have to make choices here and now. Which is why when they meet the writers of Rohan, they almost just kill everybody in the Fellowship who's still there. Immediately. Well, we got to make choices. We're going to do it now.
We're going to do it. So that kind of recklessness, right? They are impatient with thoughtful action. This is in real contrast to the group that we meet right after the writers of Rohan, which are the Ents.
Yes.
Right?
The sentient trees.
The sentient trees.
Who are there because they are shepherds of the trees, and the trees need shepherds. Who would have thought the trees need shepherds? But when you have those giant forests that we have in here, they need shepherds. And so these are sentient trees in some fashion. They look like trees, they act like trees, they think like trees. And within his own texts, Tolkien is never really clear on if the Ents are elves that shepherded trees and became like trees, or trees that were shepherded by the elves and became elf-like. It's never really clear, and he doesn't want it to be clear. Because part of the point is that the love of these trees is all that matters.
Yes.
The love of nature is what really matters.
Yeah, and this is the part that really reflects Tolkien's environmentalism.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it
and
does.
that you have this, but you also have this real, not just environmentalism, but kind of a pastoralism that idealizes nature, right? Because you have this real contrast between the wild recklessness of men, particularly this warrior culture, right? And throughout the book, you just can't trust men. They're impatient, they're prideful, they screw everything up, right? And then on the other side of it, right, you have trees, the nature, you have the natural world, right? Where things work on a different scale, right? That we have the elves that are kind of the same. We've got time. We're immortal. Tom Bombadil, also another person who's in touch with the natural world, and he's also like he can't really be bothered with the destruction of the natural of the human world or whatever.
He doesn't even grasp that this is a thing, which is why when he puts on the ring on, nothing happens to him.
Yeah, and the Ents, for the most part, really ignore what human beings do, in part because human beings are always moving so fast. It's just like, that's the human action du jour, right? So we don't really need to pay attention.
There's a Terry Pratchett one, which we'll talk about Terry Pratchett more, where he talks about how every time the trees, they lift up all that the fluid in their systems on the summer, and then it goes back down in the winter, that's the equivalent of one heartbeat for a human. That's how slowly trees work. And
they move so slowly that Saruman says, I don't even have to worry about them, right? I can tear up all of these forests. The Ents are irrelevant, and that is a decision that Saruman makes that he will come to regret at one point. It's a little bit like the tortoise and the hare, and this goes back to the impatience of Boromir, right? He is convinced if I don't do this right now, it won't happen, and it won't happen right. And the Ents are like, ooh, if we move too fast,
we move without consensus.
Yeah, things will fall apart. Right, so you have this kind of tension, and what struck me as I was looking at this is, thinking about action and wisdom or thought, right? And it really struck me that the thing is that action without thought is just recklessness, right? But thought without action is useless, right? So you really need to try to. This is a fellowship thing, right? How do we discern and then act together? And you have, and I think that's perhaps a good point to stop here, and then in the next time we'll pick up on the breaking of the fellowship and what happens to Frodo and Sam.